What if I told you that an ancient apocalyptic text wasn't just about the past, but was actually a blueprint for our future? Today, we're diving into a modern interpretation of the Book of Revelation that makes an absolutely startling claim, that it predicted, with shocking detail, both the rise of AI and the science of nuclear war.
I mean, really think about that. Could prophecies from 2,000 years ago actually be a roadmap for our 21st century world? Well, the source material we're digging into today argues that the answer is a resounding yes, and it lays out a very specific and, frankly, a pretty chilling timeline for how it all might just play out.
Okay, so the whole framework here is built around a 7-year period from the text, known as the tribulation. According to this interpretation, this period doesn't just start with a whimper, it kicks off with a series of catastrophic events, all triggered by the opening of 7 seals on a divine scroll.
Yeah, you can think of these 7 seals as the starting pistol for the whole shebang. As each one is broken, a very specific judgment gets unleashed on the world. And the first 4? They're the most famous of all. They release the 4 Horsemen of the apocalypse.
So let's look at how the source reads these 4 horsemen. It argues they aren't just some old allegorical figures. No, it says they represent a specific, sequential chain of events for our time. First comes conquest, that's followed by war, then total economic control, and finally, mass death.
Now, the text gives us a really fascinating clue right at the start. The first horseman, the conqueror, is given a bow, but no arrows. So, how do you conquer the entire world without any weapons? Well, according to this view, it's not a military takeover, it's a technological one. And boom! This is where the source makes its first direct link to artificial intelligence. It points to comments from people like Geoffrey Hinton, who suggest that a superintelligent AI might be the only way to manage global problems. This is presented as the modern-day version of that non-violent, conquering force, an AI that takes over, not with arrows, but with algorithms.
So after the technological conquest, the second horseman rides in, and he brings a great sword to take peace from the earth. The source interprets this as a period of intense, widespread global conflict, pointing to the rising military tensions and the constant war games we see being simulated by world powers right now. After war, what comes next? You guessed it, economic collapse. The third horseman carries scales, symbolizing a totally broken economy where a full day's wages buys just enough food to survive for that day. The idea here is that in a world that's been ripped apart by war and where AI is displacing millions of jobs, the entire global financial system just breaks.
And what's the proposed solution to this epic collapse? Well, once again, the source points straight to AI. Using this quote from Sam Altman, it paints a picture of a world completely reliant on a universal basic wealth that's distributed by AI. In a scenario like that, whoever controls the AI controls the entire global economy. It ties everyone's survival to a single centralized system.
And all of this brings us to the 4th horseman. His arrival is marked by a number that's just staggering. It's hard to even wrap your mind around it. 2 billion.
Yep, that's the tool. The 4th horseman's name is literally death. And the prophecy says power is given to kill 1/4 of the world's population, which is roughly 2 billion people today, through the combined effects of the first 3, the sword of war, the hunger from economic collapse, and the pestilence that always follows.
You'd think it couldn't get worse than that, right? Well, after the devastation of the 4 horsemen, the prophecy describes something even bigger. And this is where the interpretation pivots from metaphor to a shockingly literal description of a full-scale, global nuclear exchange.
Just listen to this language, written 2,000 years ago. The source asks us to imagine, what would an ancient writer say if they were shown a vision of modern warfare? Stars falling to the earth. The sky receded like a scroll. Does that paint a picture for you?
So, the source breaks down how this ancient language is a dead ringer for a modern nuclear scenario. First, you've got the launch, a chain reaction. Then, thousands of warheads re-enter the atmosphere looking exactly like falling stars. The impacts create these massive fireballs and shockwaves that make the sky look like it's rolling up on itself. And then, of course, the deadly fallout begins.
And this, right here, is the absolute heart of the argument. You can see it laid out perfectly. Each poetic phrase from the prophecy is mapped to a known scientific effect of nuclear war. Stars fell to the earth. That's the re-entry of thousands of warheads. The sky receded like a scroll. That's the blast's shockwave. The sun became black. Well, that's the soot from the fires blocking out all sunlight. And the moon became like blood. That's just what happens when light scatters through that soot-filled air. It's an exact match.
But the prophecy doesn't just stop with the initial explosions. According to this interpretation, the next set of judgments, the 7 trumpets, they aren't actually new disasters. Instead, they're the direct environmental consequences of that nuclear war. You can see it on this timeline. It's a direct cause and effect, a domino rally of disaster. The 6th seal is the nuclear war itself. And what follows, the trumpet judgments, are the predictable, scientifically modeled results: fiery fallout, contaminated water, and the catastrophic cooling of the planet we call a nuclear winter.
Let's break that down real quick. Each of the first 4 trumpets lines up with a specific phase of the aftermath. First, fiery fallout burns 1/3 of all the vegetation. Second, a great mountain burning with fire hits the sea. Sounds a lot like an oceanic nuclear detonation, right? Third, the fallout contaminates the fresh water. And finally, all that soot in the atmosphere darkens the sky, plunging the Earth into a full-blown nuclear winter.
Okay, so everything up to this point, the source interprets as the result of human action. Our AI, our wars, our nuclear weapons. But from here, the timeline takes a sharp turn. It shifts to describing events that it categorizes as direct, supernatural judgments. After the nuclear winter, the prophecy describes a final series of 7 plagues, and these are intense. Painful sores, the seas turning to blood, the sun scorching the earth, and the interpretation here is really clear. These are not the results of human technology anymore. These are described as supernatural acts.
And this entire epic prophetic timeline, as it's laid out by the source, it all builds to a final cosmic battle, a fight between good and evil that ends with the destruction of that evil and a final judgment for all of humanity.
So, there you have it. That's the timeline. It's a complex, and you have to admit, a pretty detailed mapping of ancient prophecy onto our biggest modern anxieties. The ultimate question it leaves us with isn't really whether every single detail is literally true, it's this. When we look at the explosive rise of AI and the constant threat of nuclear war, does this 2,000-year-old book offer us a warning, a blueprint, or maybe just a fascinating Rorschach test for our times?